All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, my name is Kenny Shiloh Russell. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a program officer at New York Foundation for the Arts, or NYFA. And today this is an information session for the JGS Fellowship in Photography. And we'll just be going through the application guidelines as well as some evaluation criteria and all of that. But before we get into it, there are two other NYFA staff members on the call, and so I will pass it off to them to introduce themselves. I'll pass it off to Raina first.
Hey everyone, my name is Reina Pajare. I use they, them pronouns, and today I'll just be working on the back end and sending helpful links throughout the presentation. I'll pass it to Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah O'Connell. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of NYFA grants. I will also mostly be on the back end and helping with the Q&A when we get there. But first, I'd also like to give a brief introduction to NYFA, just in case this is anyone's first point of contact with us. So the JGS Fellowship for Photography is just one of 15 different grant and award programs that we offer each year. And that's one of our main offerings that we have here at NYFA. We have unrestricted, project-based, and emergency grant programs, which we administer to artists as well as arts organizations across New York City, New York State, and we even have some national programs. We also have a fiscal sponsorship program, which is a fundraising tool for artist projects specifically or emerging arts organizations. And that allows you to apply to funding opportunities using NYFA's 501(c)(3) tax exempt status. So this opens up a lot of possibilities to accessing funding that otherwise you wouldn't be able to apply to without a fiscal sponsor or without being an organization yourself. Next, we have our learning department, and this encompasses a lot of different opportunities. We have professional development opportunities for artists and arts administrators, such as career advice and coaching, online workshops, and leadership initiative programs. And then lastly, we have our online resources, which includes our NYFA classifieds, which offers artist opportunities, space rentals, and jobs within the arts. We also recently have added a volunteer portal, which is a free listings for volunteer opportunities. And also within online resources, I always like to mention that we keep an updated list of emergency resources. So these are emergency grants that are offered across the US that NYFA doesn't administer ourselves, but that we often point to for artists in need. And I believe Raina has been sharing links to all of these different opportunities in the chat. So I definitely recommend that you check them out after. And also, I forgot to mention specifically fiscal sponsorship is an open enrollment right now where you can apply for that opportunity if you're interested. All right, so I will pass it back over to Kenny.
Thank you. Okay, so here is our agenda for the next hour. First, we're going to go into a grant overview, and then we'll talk about applicant eligibility. Then we'll go into how to apply, and we'll also talk about some application tips. Then we'll go into review process and evaluation criteria. And then we'll also get into some other application questions. And then lastly, we'll finish off with the Q&A. And so for the Q&A, we just ask that you can ask questions as they come in. We just ask that you wait until you get to the end of the section that we're discussing or that you have a question about, just to make sure that your question isn't already going to be discussed. But we'll answer all the questions at the end, and there should be a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen on the little tab there. But yes, so applications are currently open. They close on Tuesday, May 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern, and applicants will be notified this summer. And also want to mention that the application will close automatically at 5 p.m., but we'll get into that more in a bit. Okay, so to talk about the grant overview, just to give you a brief overview about this program for anyone who may be learning for the first time. So the JGS Fellowship for Photography, it's an $8,000 cash grant that's open to photography artists that are living in New York State, but outside of New York City. And so this fellowship, it's awarded to 5 artists working in both traditional or experimental photography, and this can include light-based work, alternative processes, or any form in which photography or photographic techniques are pivotal, if not exclusive. And so now to talk a little bit about who is eligible to apply for this program. So in order to apply, applicants must be 25 years or older by the application deadline date. So that's by Tuesday, May 19th, 2026. And applicants must be current full-time residents of New York State outside of the 5 boroughs of New York City. And you must have maintained this New York State residency for a minimum of 12 months at the time the application closes. So from May 2025. And so you are eligible if you live in one of the following regions. So Western New York, Finger Lakes, Southern Tier, Central New York, North County, Mohawk Valley, Capital District, Hudson Valley, and Long Island. And again, just to reiterate, New York residents of New York City are not eligible. So if you live within the 5 boroughs, you are unfortunately not eligible to apply for this grant. And just a little bit more about who is not eligible to apply for this program. So full-time students in a degree-seeking program of any kind aren't eligible for this opportunity. If you were awarded the JGS Fellowship in the past, you are also not eligible for this opportunity. But if you are a recipient of any other NYFA program, you are eligible to apply. And also NYFA employees, members of the NYFA Board of Trustees or the Artist Advisory Committee, or immediate family members if any of the above are so unfortunately aren't eligible to apply for this. Okay, we're now going to move into how to apply. So to apply for the JGS Fellowship, you need to create a Submittable account. This is the platform that we use for all of our applications at NYFA. And so it's free to create an account. If you already have an account, you can use the existing one. You don't need to create a new one for this application specifically. But once you have a Submittable account, you can go to NYFA's submission portal. I believe Raina just put a link to it in the chat. And from there, you can see all of the programs that we have open, and then you can select the JGS Fellowship for photography from the available applications. After you selected the application that you'd like to apply for, in this case, JGS, you'll be asked to complete an eligibility form prior to gaining access to the application. It'll just ask you a few eligibility questions similarly to the criteria that we just discussed, just to again confirm that you are eligible for this opportunity before you put in time to apply. And then after you have access to the application form, you'll be able to complete the application, and we'll get into what that entails next. And please complete it at your own pace. And then once you're done, you can hit the submission button before the application deadline, before May 19th. And once you submit, you should receive a email confirmation from Submittable. You should receive it a few minutes after, shortly after submitting your application. If you don't receive it, please check your spam folder. But yeah, once you receive the email, then you'll know that your application has been submitted and you're good to go. Okay, so to talk about the application form. So there are 5 parts of the application form. First up is the eligibility form, which we just discussed. Next up is the applicant information. And so that's just in your name and your contact information and some other general questions that are relevant to this award. Next are your work samples and support statements, which we'll get into next. And then lastly, we ask a few demographic questions. This is confidential. It's not shared with the panel. It's purely only for internal reporting purposes at NYFA. Okay, so to talk about the work samples. So the work samples, this is the most important part of your application. It's the primary point of review for the JGS Fellowship. This program is not a project grant, so you should be submitting work that is completed or a completed piece of an ongoing body of work. Work samples that are produced in the last 5 years are highly recommended. If you choose to submit work samples that are older than 5 years, please provide an explanation in your application as to why you chose the work samples, why you chose older work samples. And there is a metadata section that will pop up after each upload where you can do so. And so applicants, you can submit up to 10 images total. We recommend submitting no less than 5, but you can submit any amount up to 10. And again, they can be representative of a singular body of work or multiple bodies of work. The format accepted is JPEG, and each upload should represent a singular work sample. And the resolution that we recommend is 2000 pixels on the longest side at 72 dpi. So just continuing a bit about the work samples, we ask that you label your work samples in the following format. So number underscore the title and then the year of your submission. Images of diptychs, installations, and multi-part works are accepted. And again, it's strongly recommended that applicants do not submit a single file of multiple work samples in order to increase the amount of work samples submitted. So for example, including 4 image files of separate pieces together in a grid format, which would differ than a diptych. We encourage you to just submit one work sample per file. Again, after you upload each image, and the metadata section will appear. And in this section, you'll be able to provide the following information. So title, date of completion, materials used, and the dimensions of your piece. And also a tip, when formatting your images, RGB is the recommended color profile for screen viewing. And if you need to edit, resize, or format your images, you can use any editing software such as like Photoshop, Lightroom, Canva, Preview, things like that. And also want to mention that all images are going to be reviewed online within the Submittable application platform. Images are not going to be reproduced outside of this. And we also ask that you upload your files in the order that you would like them to be reviewed and number the files in the order that you would like them to be reviewed as well. All right, next up, we have your work sample information. So this is a text box in the application form. Document uploads like PDFs aren't eligible or an option for this section. And so this is a 250 word box. And so in addition to your submitted images, we ask you to further explain the context, concept, or execution of your work samples. So some things that you can think about when crafting this statement are how your work samples or a portion of your work samples represent a larger body of work, whether the images document an installation, experience, performance, or time-based piece. And then also the intent and circumstances in which the viewer or the audience should experience the work, such as instructions for navigating the work, if it's interactive, things like that. And that is it for the work sample section. In addition to the work sample section, you also have your support statements. And so support statements must also be submitted directly in the application form in the corresponding text boxes. So there are 2. The first one is required. It's an artist statement, also 250 words. And so this is a concise statement that should give an overview of your artistic practice. And so it should give a brief introduction to the ideas, themes, and methods in your practice. So for example, how you make what you make or why you make what you make. The statement should also reflect the ideas and inspiration relevant to your submitted work samples. And so you can use a statement to highlight your role in creating or executing the work, as well as describing the key technical aspects of the work. And also just want to emphasize here that this is not an artist bio. The next one is optional. It's another 250-word statement. It is your cultural statement. And so this is a supplemental statement that you can submit that would describe how your work is related or rooted in a specific cultural practice, tradition, or community. And the statement can also offer an opportunity to describe how your artistic work relates to or stems from your culturally lived experience. So again, this is not required, it's optional. Please only submit it if you feel as if it's relevant to you and your work. And also just want to mention that we do recommend writing your statements in either Microsoft Word or Google Docs or an alternative space outside of Submittable, and then pasting them into Submittable when you're ready. Again, document uploads for the support statements are not accepted. And so writing them outside of the Submittable platform and then pasting them in is recommended. And this is it for the contents that the panel will be reviewing during your application. All right. Now to get into the review and evaluation process. So just to give some background, applications are reviewed over the course of 3 elimination rounds. So in the rounds 1 and 2, the panel will review and score the assigned applications independently. And then round 3, the panel will meet as a group and collectively discuss the applications that made it to this round. And then in turn, we'll conclude by selecting the recipients. So as we move through each round, the application pool gets a little smaller and smaller until we get to the final collective panel discussion in round 3. Next up is the evaluation criteria. So peer review panelists will meet to assess the eligible applications according to the following criteria. So there's 3 points. It's creativity and artistic merit, then clarity and cohesiveness, and then lastly, originality and innovation. And we'll go through all 3 of them. So artistic merit. A competitive application demonstrates excellence in photography through strong work samples that highlight the applicant's creativity, technical proficiency, and cohesive artistic vision. The next one up is clarity and cohesiveness. A competitive application presents clear, concise, and compelling support statements that provide valuable insights into their practice and motivations. The support statement should work together. They should work in tandem with the submitted work samples to provide a comprehensive understanding of the applicant's vision and goals. And then lastly, originality and innovation. A competitive application showcases innovative methods, ideas, or concepts that make the work stand out within the discipline. Panelists will assess the uniqueness and originality of an applicant's approach, including the quality of execution, innovation in materials or techniques, and then the overall impact of your work. So these are the 3 criteria points that the peer-reviewed panel will be using to review your applications. All right. And before we get into the Q&A, I'll just share some application tips. So we just ask that you review the application guidelines closely. We'll put another link to them in the chat below. And then also carefully review and answer the eligibility questions on your application. You'll receive the eligibility form prior to getting access to the actual application. So just making sure that you're reading that all clearly. Also ensuring that your contact information is correct. The contact information that you put in your application is what we will be using to contact you if you are awarded. And so making sure that you're using an email that is up to date and that if by any reason we need to contact you via phone, that is also up to date as well. Also just allowing enough time to upload your work samples and also just enough time to complete and submit your application. The Submittable platform will close automatically at 5 p.m. and applications cannot be submitted after the deadline. The submission portal will close, and no exceptions can be made to this rule, unfortunately. So you just want to make sure that you're submitting it at least a couple hours ahead of the deadline just to accommodate for any issues. And you can start your application today in Submittable, and you can save it as a draft, and you can complete it at a later date. Submittable saves your application. So yes, you don't have to complete it in one sitting. You can work on it over the next month and a half. All right. And that is our presentation. Thank you. Again, so for any additional information on the fellowship, you can view our JGS homepage. There's also some frequently asked questions on there as well that you can look through. But for now, we'll move into the Q&A portion. So again, the Q&A box, it should be at the bottom of your screen, and you can put any questions that you have in there. Um, and yeah, we'll get into that. And so we will look over at that now. All right, so the first question that we have is, if I'm in an MFA program for writing that starts in June 2026, does that disqualify me from this grant's eligibility? So all eligibility requirements are for the time of applying slash the application deadline, so by May 19th of this year. And so as long as you're not enrolled by the application deadline, which in this case, if you're starting in June, you would not be, you're eligible to apply as long as you meet the other eligibility criteria as well. Okay. And then next, do you recommend that we submit a cultural statement? So again, this is an optional statement. It really depends on each artist and your work, and if you feel as though your work is related or rooted in a specific cultural practice or cultural experience. Again, it's optional, and so a lack of a cultural statement will not impact your application negatively in any way. We don't recommend including it simply for the sake of including it. Um, Similarly, in the same way that all of the support statements, as well as the work sample information, they have a 250 word limit. That is the word limit. It's not a hard and fast rule by any means. You don't have to use the full word limit if you feel as though you don't need to. So yes, same goes for the cultural statement. Please only submit if you feel as though it is relevant to you and your work. Can the photos range from multiple projects? Yes, you can submit for multiple projects. This isn't a project grant. And so you can either submit images that encompass a larger body of work as well as specific projects. And you can explain why you chose to submit those photos in the work sample information. But yes, that is acceptable and eligible. And again, we have another question regarding the multiple bodies of work. There's no limit on the number of bodies of work that can be submitted. The only limit here is the amount of images, so 10 images. You can submit as many bodies of work as you would like to within those 10 images. And then a second part to this question regarding the dimensions. There someone is asking, should the dimensions be of the actual image or framed the frame size? So the dimension should be for the image size you're applying, regardless of the framed image or whether or not it's framed. And the formats that accepted, it's JPEG, as well as the recommended resolution is 2000 pixels on the longest side at 72 dpi. We have another question here regarding the dimensions. We actually just updated this information on our website today, right before the info session, just to provide a bit more guidance. But all dimensions are recommended rather than required. And so the images will be reviewed on a computer by the panelists within the application, within the Submittable application platform. And so they won't be reproduced, they won't be like projected on a wall or anything like that. They will be viewed on a computer. And then we have another question. Is it possible to delete a prior submitted application and start a new one? So you can reach out to us at fellowships at NYFA for more information on this. Since it's before the deadline, we can assist you with this in helping you to like reopen your application. But in general, for anyone else, we just recommend that you save drafts of your application and not submit it until you're sure that it's final. Applications will not begin being reviewed until after the deadline. There's no benefit to applying early. We don't accept rolling submissions or anything like that. And so, yeah, you can save as many drafts as you would like, and then as many drafts of the same application, and submit it once you are sure that it is complete. Thank you. Another question, is it possible to submit a motion picture file as a work sample? Also, is it acceptable to submit a still, installation image, or moving image as part of the exhibition? So only still images are allowed for this program, for the JGS Fellowship. You're only allowed to submit JPEGs for this program. We're just looking through the rest of the questions. Is there a budget required to be submitted and how we plan to use the funding? No, this is not a project grant. There's no requirements or reporting that will take place in regards to the funding. When reviewers are in the three different evaluation phases, how are they judging originality and innovation? What standards are they judging to and from? So the three different phases, they essentially just take place for the panelists to dive deeper into the applications that make it further into the review process. So everyone will start out with a larger group and then like the full group, and then we'll move in to round two will be slightly smaller, and then round three will be the smallest group that is discussed in a group panel discussion. And so for judging originality and innovation, just to reiterate the guidelines, so a competitive application showcases innovative methods, ideas, and or concepts that make the work stand out within the photography field. And so the panelists are going to assess the uniqueness and originality of an applicant's approach, including the quality of execution, innovation in materials or techniques, then the overall impact of the work. Applicants can also demonstrate innovation through place-based work that is informed by or responsive to a specific location, community, or environment. So the three criteria points will remain the same in each evaluation phase in each round. They will still have the same 3 points that they will be using to score each application as we move through the rounds. Next one up is, are there any additional helpful things to note in an application? So again, is just making sure that you're getting in advance of the deadline. We can't assist with technical issues at the last minute, and there will be no extensions. But if you need any assistance in applying ahead of the deadline, definitely email us, and we can assist you with that. But yes, just making sure that you're doing so with enough time in advance. And then lastly, just to make sure that ensuring that you have a cohesive voice throughout your application and connecting your support statements to and your just written statements as well to your work samples. Again, as it was mentioned earlier in the Q&A, some folks had questions about submitting multiple bodies of work or multiple projects. That's completely fine and eligible, just making sure that if that is what you choose to do, that you're making sure there is a cohesive voice amongst the work samples submitted and that works in tandem with the support statements that you're writing as well. And again, just making sure that you're reviewing the 3 criteria points that the panel will be using to review your applications. Should the statements be in first person or third person? There's no requirement. We recommend first person, but again, there's no requirement. Either way, whichever you choose, whether it's first or third, we ask that you keep it consistent throughout your application. All right. If awarded the grant, are there any specific requirements or follow-ups regarding like reporting or updates expected from the artist in regards to the use of the grant? So for this grant, no, it's an unrestricted grant, so recipients can use the funds in whatever way they see fit. After the grant is confirmed, no additional reporting is needed. We have another question here. How are panelists selected? So panelists are selected from a variety of places. They're individual artists and arts workers who have an expertise in photography. And we take recommendations from our artist advisory committee. We also invite past recipients of grant programs, as well as we do individualized research and invitations based on panelists' expertise in the field and individuals, artists and arts workers and their expertise in the fields. And so, yeah, we make every effort to make our panels as diverse as possible. Like we want to consider gender, ethnicity, cultural background, and geographic location. As you all know, the JGS Fellowship, it's open to New York State, outside of New York City. And so we especially want to make sure that the panelists are from a variety of places across the state as well. And panelists' names are kept confidential until the awards are announced. And our panelists change every year as well. And so if you've applied to this program in the past, you will not, the same people will not be reviewing your application again this year. Now, just scrolling through, the questions are they're slowing down just a little bit. But if you have any additional ones, please feel free to put them in our Q&A. We have another question here. We're asking how we help post-selection. So it's a monetary award of $8,000, and it's administered when recipients are notified. And we notify recipients through a press release, and as well as we promote recipient work in events or do our best to throughout the year as they are announced. Um, and this kind of goes in tandem with the next question. How many awards are bestowed to photographers, and is there an award ceremony? So for this program, there's 5 JGS Fellowships awarded per year, and there's no official award ceremony for this program. Again, as I just mentioned, we announce recipients through a press release. It will also be listed on our grants history page on our website, and we do our promotion as well through social media. Do awardees need to keep an eye peeled for the press release, or are they notified individually? So all applicants will be notified of their status in the summer and like late summer of this year. And when it comes time to for the press release and all of that, we will share that information with the recipients as well. They won't have to keep your eyes peeled or anything like that. We don't have an official date confirmed for the announcement, but that will be confirmed later on in the year, and we will share that with the recipients ahead of the announcement date. All right. The questions are slowing down, but I'll just give it another minute. Again, if you have any additional questions or any like more specific questions, you can email us at fellowships@NYFA, and we will get back to you. And also just want to mention that this info session, it's been recorded, and we will upload it on our YouTube channel and on our website as well in about a week or so after we do the captioning for it. All right, we will wrap it up here. Thank you all again for listening and taking the time to learn about this program. Yes, again, the deadline is May 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern. If you have any additional questions, you can contact us at fellowships@nyfa.org. Thank you again, and best of luck on your applications.